Hi guys, welcome back to At Home with Holly. My name's Holly. I'm so glad that you're here with me today. I am going through my seeds right now, trying to get some corn lined up. Today is a big day. We're going to be planting. It started last night. I was like, oh my gosh, I have got to get all my plants in the ground. They are sitting in pots. They are more than hardened off. They are starting to get stressed in the pots. Some of them, most of my tomatoes did great. There was like half a dozen of them that just started to look very yellow, very stressed, very sad. I up-potted them and put them outside and they started to green up, but they still look really rough. So I actually reseeded in the bottom of their little pots, and the new sprouts are coming up. So I'm going to plant the old, not looking good ones, and I'm also going to put the little new sprouts in the ground as well. So want to get the tomatoes going. I started last night. Last night it was going to, well, it rained all night, and it's going to rain on and off today too. It's cloudy and dreary, which is the perfect day to plant stuff out because nothing's going to be like stressed about having full sun and all that kind of stuff. So started last night. I got all the melons and cucumbers. I'm going to take you back with me while I finish figuring out which corn seeds I'm going to plant. So last night I did all the cucumbers, melons, and I did about 5 or 6 tomatoes, and then it was pitch black, pitch black. So Lydia and I did that together last night. I'm going to take you back with me, and then I'm going to take you with me this morning while we plant, the tomatoes, peppers, and then corn together. So I'm so glad you're here. Let's get started. Time to plant. So here is the plan. I'm going to go grab the plants and lay them out. So that piece of paper was actually detailing all 7 trellises and what I'm planting on either side of the trellis. I love using vertical gardening on trellises, or now with my green stock planters. I just love the idea of maximizing what you can grow in small spaces. And so I'm lucky that I have a beautiful garden that has tons of raised beds, but I still like to maximize my square footage by growing vertically. So on this first trellis, I'm going to be planting cucumbers on this trellis. And so I'm going to be doing some slicing, some pickling, and some greenhouse style cucumbers. I'm definitely planting heavier than you would probably want if you thought all the plants were going to survive. But like I have found, not all of the plants are going to survive. So I'm planting heavily, and I will actually thin some out as time goes on, as they start to climb, just so that they're not overcrowded. They still have really good ventilation. But for now, we're planting about 3 of each of the 3 type of cucumbers on this one trellis. And then I call in backup. So I love being able to have Olivia in the garden with me. She has become such a great little helper, and she knows more probably than most grown-ups about how to plant and how things go. So she's definitely an awesome little partner to have in the garden. But I think it's so important that she knows, where food comes from and what makes healthy food and all that kind of stuff, and nutrient-dense soil and all the things. So I'm glad for her help, and I'm especially glad for her help because after bending over to do these plants for so many hours, my back was starting to get a little sore, and I knew I had another day's worth. And so I actually started wearing my TENS unit machine, the thing that I hook up to my back and sends little stim things in to kind of help ease the muscle pain and relax everything. And she saw that I was wearing that, and she said, "Oh, I can help." And so she came over, and so she'd come over and help on a trellis or 2, and then she'd go jump on the trampoline, and then she'd come back over and help again. And I just, it's not forced, but if I ask her for help, she'll give it to me. But I love the fact that she's starting to volunteer it as well, and she does a really good job. So on this day, we are planting some of our 8 varieties of melons. If you were with me on that day that we actually planted these from seed, I went through all the varieties, and I can link that video at the end. But all of these did really, really well. And this is after about 3, maybe 3.5 weeks of growth since we planted them. And so I'm super happy with the way they look. They've been hardened off outside. And, sometimes I'll wait till like mid-May to plant them out in my zone in Northwest Ohio. But the 10-day forecast, nothing below 55 at night. And I was like, you know what? Let's just go ahead and get these out because I don't want them to get too big where they are going to get stressed from transplant shock. So here we go. We are putting them in, and I'm excited to be able to have all of these varieties growing on my trellises. My goal is to have melons just covering all the trellises because melons are my favorite food. My favorite fruit. And so I love having, actually, that's not true. It's hard to pick a favorite, really. But, berries, I love them too. But melons are something that I look forward to, and I want to eat them till I'm absolutely sick of them. So having all these 8 varieties is definitely going to help in that effort for sure. Now, as we were putting in all of these melons and we were having some mommy-daughter time, I was actually taking a look at the beds, and I was counting out how many tomatoes that I had. I was looking at the soil, I was looking at the spacing, I was looking at all this stuff, and I was making plans for, I always have a plan in mind, and I lay out all my garden beds on graphing paper, and I'm like, okay, this is how many peppers I can fit, and this is how many, but there's something about like seeing it with your own eyes and kind of taking note of it that you're like, okay, nope, yep, that's going to work there. Well, maybe I can fit a couple there. Or, oh yeah, we were finding grubs and we were collecting them, and Olivia was putting them in a pot to feed to the chickens. But at this time, I was still going through and I was, pushing the soil aside and making these trenches, and I'm, planting the melons, but I'm also looking at the middle of the beds and I'm thinking, how many basil plants can I fit in? How many, okay, I'm going to put all my slicing peppers here. I'm going to, not peppers, my slicing tomatoes there, and my cherry tomatoes on this bed, and kind of making plans and just really dreaming about what the garden's going to be. I think the practical side of me was laying out like, okay, good, I've got enough tomato plants, and yep, and that's going to go there. And then also just kind of visualizing and dreaming about what this garden is going to look like when it's full and lush, and in the days of summer where I'm just getting buckets and buckets of tomatoes and melons and peppers. And so I can't wait. I love that part of the garden, but I am trying to beat the clock because on this night it is getting darker and darker, and I just know there's going to be no way that I'm going to be able to put in everything, and that's okay. It doesn't all have to get done in one day, but having Liv help me is really, really helpful, and so we're getting done as much as we can. But again, I am looking at the spaces and I'm like, okay, I know that some of my tomato plants were getting a little stressed, and some of them were like on death's door. I may have overwatered a tray of them, and so they were looking pretty bad for a while there. And so I had reseeded their pots, and I was thinking, okay, are these little guys big enough? Are they going to make it out here? And then I thought, oh, well, maybe I should just plant the older plants that are looking really rough, and maybe I should do this. And I was going back and forth in my mind, and luckily for me, I just had to put my head down and be able to keep planting these melons because we are going to run out of daylight tonight. And so it gave me a whole other night to think about a plan, which I did come up with. And spoiler alert, it does work out that even the old plants that, well, you'll see as we go. But so we are trying to get it done tonight as quick as we can. And Olivia just keeps I think she was at this point hoping we were going to find some grubs so she could add them to her little collection because she loves to feed the chickens. So she thinks it's funny how they, eat them all. Oh, yep, it's getting pretty dark here. My camera switched to being able to have the light on. So I'm just going to water in the melons, and then we're going to call it for tonight. Somebody's inside the coop feeding the grubs that we found. All right, it is the next day and we are back at it again. So what I have done is I have laid out all of my tomato plants besides these that I actually had gotten planted the night before. I'm going to lay out all of my tomato plants, and you can see some of them are not looking good. I have taken all the leaves and stems and branches off the bottom half of basically the plant, and I'm just, that way I can plant them really deep and I don't have to worry about the branches. But some of these are begging to be planted. They are very stressed and ready to go into the ground. And I was actually really worried about would they perk up. And so I had, about a week and a half ago planted, I had reseeded like the bottoms of the pots basically on any of them that I thought were looking a little sketch. And so when I'm planting these, I'm digging a really deep hole. And my plan is to plant it right up until the top branches. And then on some, and so first I'm putting trifecta in the holes, of course, because I put trifecta in all the holes that I plant plants in. But some of these had little baby seedlings in the pot with them. And so I would take a second to scoop out the little seedlings, put them to the side, and then put the, looking almost dead tomato plant in the ground, and then plant the little seedlings right next to them as well. And I'm telling you guys, within 2 or 3 days, those plants just really threw on a ton of new green leaf. But I had done it with all of the plants that I basically almost killed by neglect and then overwatering and then neglect again. So I did have backups going because there were certain varieties that I really, really wanted to have growing this year, because for those of you that have been following along, I am on the search to find my favorite fresh eating tomato. And so some of these are very important to this search to me. And I actually, when I was at the my local garden center looking for some perennials at the perennial sale, they had one type of tomato that I hadn't even thought of. And so I was like, oh, yep, I picked up one of those too. So I'm excited. So anyway, I'm taking a moment here and I'm putting in all of the tomatoes. Now, in my beds, I am going to be single trellising these tomatoes. And so I am practicing high intensity planting. So I'm planting these plants about maybe 14 to 16, maybe more than that, maybe like 16 to 18 inches apart from each other, with the thought that I'm going to be doing a single stem trellising situation. So there's going to be plenty of airflow, and I'm going to be pruning off the suckers. You guys can follow along with me on this journey we're going to take together while I show you step by step how I keep them pruned, how I trellis them, all that kind of stuff. But for today, we are getting them in their homes because they needed to get out of these pots. I could have and should have probably taken the time to up pot them, but since I knew they were going to be going in the ground, I kind of waited a week, and I think in hindsight, I probably should have potted them up. But they did a quick turnaround once we got in the ground, so I'm excited to show you guys that on the garden tour that I'm going to be doing coming up here soon. But they perked up right away. So for today, we're getting them in the ground. But you can see that we have two lines of carrots actually going down the middle of the bed. And then I'm going to be interplanting a lot of basil plants and herbs and all of that stuff in and around these as well. And then we have garlic going on the outside of the beds too, because I think more than a lot of people talk about companion planting, I really believe in interplanting, meaning that you plant things in and around each other that confuse the pests and attract pollinators and beneficial insects. So a lot of the things that I plant are things that are deterring pests because they're herbs and they have strong scents, and they not only confuse a lot of the bugs, but sometimes sometimes the things that are going to eat your plants don't like the smell of them. So it confuses them. They don't like them. Anything to help nature along its way. And then, of course, I also do some beautiful trap crops like nasturtium and stuff at the ends of the beds as well to make a safe place for the aphids to land, not on my plants and stuff like that. So you'll see that it kind of looks like I'm just throwing stuff in the bed, but there is a method to my madness. I'm planting 2 rows of the tomatoes, and I'm planting the carrots down the middle, and then we're going to be doing basil in and amongst the bottom as well. And then other herbs like dill and things along there as well. So you're going to see me keep going down the row. I've got 2 beds of tomatoes. I actually ended up with 2 beds of tomatoes, plus I had 2 extra plants. And they were the 2 plants that in my mind, I was just sure that they were dead and I was going to have to give up on them. So I actually planted them. We're going to plant the peppers after this. And I planted them in the same place that I planted the peppers. And they really perked up too. So we're going to end up with all of the tomatoes that we wanted growing, and I'm pretty excited about that. Now, this is an example of one that I am not going to plant. It is dead. But the little ones that I reseeded next to it, I am going to plant those little babies, and that's going to be that's good. I'm not going to even bother planting one that is just completely shriveled up. But if it had any signs of life still in it after my mistreatment of it, then I will plant it along with the little seedling replacement babies. But when it was completely shriveled up like that guy, I just planted the new little replacement ones, and that's fine too. There were 2 or 3 of them, like I said, that I didn't think were going to come back, but they actually did. And there were 2 of them that I was like, yeah, no, you're not coming back. So I just planted the little seedlings and not the damaged mother plant. Now, I actually did knock over a tomatillo some time ago and it never recovered. And, you know, you do need more than one tomatillo to make sure that they are going to pollinate each other, so they have pollinators. And so I did actually pick up a tomatillo plant. So I have the purple tomatillo plant that we grew together and then a green tomatillo plant that I picked up from the local nursery. So this is my pepper bed, and so I am planting our sweet and spicy peppers in this bed, and they were happy to get in the ground as well. They weren't quite as stressed as the tomatoes, but they were getting close. So I'm happy to get those in the bed as well. Now here I'm going to take a minute to go ahead and place out some basil plants. I had, I think, maybe 7 or 8 different types of basil plants. So I just went ahead and planted them in and around the other plants, and some dill as well. I plant dill. I love dill. I love eating dill, but I really like to grow dill for the swallowtail butterflies that we have in our area as well. So happy to get all of those in the ground. Now, here's where we're going to be almost caught up because we are planting our corn today. And so I removed the silage tarp, and you guessed it, the thornless raspberries have decided that they did not all want to get transplanted to my berry bed. They keep sending up hundreds of these shoots. And so on the other half of the bed, I have onions planted, and I've been pulling these out nonstop. And I think once the corn and the onions come out of the bed, I'm definitely going to silage tarp this area and let it do the work for me to smother this out. But honestly, I think I'm just going to be picking out blackberry shoots for the rest of my life. And that's okay, because I'll always have an endless supply to give to friends, I guess, as well. So here we go. We're clearing out as much as we can. Most of them pull out really easily, but sometimes they snap off, and I just know it's sending a runner someplace else. But we're going to get these pulled out and get ready for our corn. So I just ended up planting the ambrosia corn. I ran out of room to plant anymore. This is an 8x4 bed, and I'm planting half of it, so it's a 4x4 block. That's the minimum amount of space that you need when you're planting corn, because if you don't have a large enough block of corn and you're not planting in like a grid pattern, they're not going to pollinate well. And the key to growing corn is to pollinate it well. So I do practice high intensity planting. These are going to be close together, they're going to be holding each other up, they're going to be pollinating each other. I did have other types of super sweet corn, but they're all this variety that I could have planted at the same time. They would have pollinated well and they would have been okay. I'm not actually growing what I think is going to be a year's worth of corn, because I would have to grow a lot more of that. And space-wise, it's just not the best bang for your buck to grow that much corn. There's many other things that are more expensive in the grocery store, and I can't source locally. And corn is something that I can get. I can source it really well, locally, organically. It tastes delicious, and it's affordable. So, but this is something that I just think is fun to grow. I think it's fun to watch. It's fun to look at. I think it's cool to see in the garden. And so we are planting this 4x4 block of the ambrosia sweet corn. Okay, guys, that's going to do it for me today. We did our ambrosia corn. I'm getting a little hot. I need to take a shower. So I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today while we planted and got our garden in. I want to say thank you so much for all the likes and the comments and the shares. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. We have so much more growing and building and fun projects to do. So I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for everything that you guys have been doing and all the support. Can't wait to see you guys next time. Bye, my friends.